Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the opening keynote for Final Fantasy XIV's first of 3 fan festivals for 2018 going into 2019. Apologies in advance. Obviously, this isn't going to be the best audio. There's a go-kart track right outside the hotel that's been going off all day, so you might hear little buzzing like bees the whole time. But I just wanted to make a video while I was here at FanFest, something really low quality that we can revisit when I actually get back, going over the announcements. I'm trying to not yell into the microphone, so I'm more excited than I seem, I promise. So, first of all, let's go into the title and, of course, the title screen that we have right here. Or I should say the logo for Shadowbringers, which has now been officially confirmed as the name for Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion. Now, Shadowbringers was a name that we were giving a little bit of attention to some months back. It had popped up on a Japanese patent retweet, or Twitter that retweets all sort of patents that come out of Japan. And we figured that this was a possibility. Some of us didn't want that because we were afraid it would mean 2 SBs in a row. But, maybe we could just do SHDW or something like that for Shadowbringers. The premise of this is going to be, as the trailer, we will definitely be doing a trailer breakdown video when I get back. It seems that we are, of course, going to be exploring the possibility that Hydaelyn is not all good, light is not good, and darkness is not evil. This is a pretty common concept in fantasy games, and it's something that we've been considering our visit towards for quite some time now in Final Fantasy XIV. And it looks like we are going to have to become the Warrior of Darkness in order to fight off this Twin Dooms. We've been doing all good this whole time, or at least what we thought. We've just been this constant champion of Hydaelyn, and it looks like that's going to come to a head. It looks like the Warrior of Darkness's warnings from way back when are finally going to be coming to fruition. We are going to need to learn how to channel darkness. We need to learn the truth about Zodiark, about the Ascians, more about the Garlean Empire, take down the Garlean Empire, among a ton of other things. It's going to be calling to question a lot of stuff. It's going to be finally answering a lot of really important questions regarding the Ascians, regarding Zodiark, regarding Hydaelyn, and from a story aspect, this was definitely my favorite initial teaser. I feel like there has to be a longer trailer coming later, but this could have been a full-length trailer all of its own. It felt like the longest, 2.5 minutes that I've ever had compared to the other trailers when they launched at the previous NA Fan Fest. So if you haven't seen it, be sure to check it out. It is a fantastic trailer. I've never seen so much energy regarding such a hype trailer. Way better than Stormblood and Heavensward. Honestly, for me, even better than their complete trailers. Only, A Realm Reborn with Bahamut at this point is really even compared to something like Shadowbringers. Anyway, moving on to the next slide, you can see the Amano artwork. I think this is the only picture I have for my slideshow here. All of these are available on the press website for Square Enix. And as such, I think this Amano artwork is the only one that kind of stretches long. And so it gets cut off at the top and the bottom, but you can still generally see, Warrior of Darkness and protecting this small child of light. Now, this is a child that appears in the teaser as well, where Thancred, with another new look, seems to have some stuff going on for him there. It somewhat reminds me of Odin, of course, with the horse, but it's almost like that child is a child of light. Like, we are the darkness, and they are kind of like the light that we need to nourish, and we need to bring balance. I'm sure there's some sort of deeper meaning or some sort of character that someone can draw from other philosophies that would probably work out. But that's just a quick once over. Once I'm past all this, we'll be able to actually dig a little bit deeper into that stuff. We have a bunch of stills from the trailer. At this point, if you haven't seen the trailer, then, it is whatever it is. And this is a flag that shows all 6 of the various nations that have now teamed up in regards to the Eorzean Alliance, or the, cross-world alliance that we established we are going to be working on in 4.4. This is basically just letting us know, us versus the Garleans. It shows the samurai version of the Warrior of Light, cutting down some enemies, and then coming to a head with another Xenos. Now, at first I thought, all the scene that's taking place right here takes place in what looks like the Warrior of Light's echo, almost like he's remembering the old scenes. It flashes back through all the Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, and then we have this scene. But we do have to establish that the trailer says that it says something like, how many years has it been since, and it starts talking about this event right here. So it's very possible that this is Elidibus Xenos, or this is the Ascian Xenos, and that the events of the trailer take place even further down the line in regards to the actual story, or that this is going to be something that more comes to a head in 4.5, which would be pretty intense, but we'll have to wait and see on that front. It's one final showdown between the Warrior of Light and Xenos, As you can see right here, we're just skipping through a few of these images because you'd probably rather just watch the trailer overall. Some wonderful, wonderful visions, some wonderful, what's the word I'm looking for? Scenery. I don't know, my brain's not working. But then we move on over into the scene that we started in. At the start of the trailer, we saw that we were walking through this like deserted land. It was almost like a world that was about to be engulfed by light. And here we have this creature who, you know, I've killed plenty of these things, and yet their names are escaping me. I always just think of Gatesy Malice, the A rank in South Shroud, since he's the one of these I've killed the most of. But this one's talking to us. This one's goading us, taunting us, telling us how, you know, our mission all along, you know, to be this champion of light, you know, we are nothing. We have nothing left to live for. You know, our efforts were all completely worthless. He's just goading us into, you know, the situation that we're about to find ourselves in. And as we're about to enact some sort of, you know, action against that creature, this creature that reminds me a lot of the Amdapori statue that was in the Lost City of Amdapor hard mode as the final boss, begins coming down from the sky. Now, my first impression of this is maybe not the direct embodiment, but a champion of Heidelin. And that this champion of Heidelin is coming to us. You know, the odds are that we're trying to fight back a sea of light at this point. You can see some aetherites or some crystals sticking out of the ground in the background right here. And that this is kind of like our last stand against the wave of light that the Warriors of Darkness succumb to on their own shard. Now, of course, a lot of this is just up for interpretation based on some of the words and whatnot that came out of the trailer, but it was pretty hype to see this moment. There's a long battle scene that takes place after this. We'll see how many screenshots they actually provided of that. And then we have this. This was a very interesting scene. So that Child of Light that we noticed in the Amano Artworks arms, here we have Thancred, surprisingly, who seems to be escorting a child of similar, you know, quantities, or of similar qualities, I should say. Quantities. Yeah, one child. Of similar qualities, you know, through a backwater area. Alamigo, Garlemald, one of them, but we don't know. I couldn't tell exactly which one, and without the trailer in front of me right now, it's hard for me to remember the smaller details, to remember exactly where it was. But he's running us through, and he's got a gunblade. Now, very akin to a gunblade that, you know, we'd maybe expect to see on someone like the Shadow Hunter, for example. And we know it's Thancred because he actually speaks. Same voice actor, same everything. Yeah, you could maybe say from the hair, but I mean, we know that this event is supposed to be taking place, what feels like years later, and so he looks like he's aged and like he's seen some things since then. Another important thing to note is that Thancred as a 4.4 is not in a scenario that would so readily allow him to be able to do the things that he's doing right now. So that means that there's going to be some sort of new development regarding what happened to them in the events of 4.4, and I'm looking forward to finding out what those are as well. I also firmly believe, of course, this is just up for interpretation. Yoshida said that during the trailer, there was a teaser for a new job. And I want to believe that this is the moment. You know, a lot of people have been asking me, will we get a gunblade using job in Final Fantasy XIV? I'm against the idea of a job called a gunblader, but the idea of a job utilizing a gunblade is not something that I felt is so far-fetched. It was something I predicted maybe Blue Mage could have used, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, because that's going to be a huge topic all on its own. So my prediction is that something regarding Gunblade, I think that this is the teaser that Yoshida alluded to, is what's happening here with Thancred. Moving on, we have this battle against the Warrior of Light and this champion of what we're presuming is Heidelin, this champion of light, I guess we'll call it. And unfortunately, it doesn't show too well in one still image, but the Warrior of Light goes from this like archer like they were back in 1.x. And this is the most important thing, is how important all the events we've done leading up to now are. When you first see the Warrior of Light, he's the archer like he was in the 1.0 trailer. Then he transforms into the warrior from the 2.0 trailer. Then he transforms into the dragoon from the 3.0 trailer. Then he transforms into the monk that you're seeing right here from the 4.0 trailer, finally turning into the samurai from the 4.0 trailer. Oh, I skipped ahead a little bit too much there. So he basically goes through all the job changes. This is supposed to signify, I guess, the journey, and that this scene may not necessarily be a literal scene that happens in the game, and more so just kind of reminding us like all the things we've done up to this point, how we've been this champion of light, and how all of it's worthless now. Everything that we've done, everything we've built up doesn't mean anything against this threat, because it's the threat itself is what gave us this power, you know, in theory. So when we're about to be crushed, this creature is about to finally destroy the Warrior of Light. He accepts Arbert's words, the Warrior of Darkness, and he opens up to darkness overall. He accepts that the only way that he stops a flood of light is if he now takes on the trait of the Warrior of Darkness. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. This is something a lot of people have predicted could be a potential plot point, especially after the events of 4.4. I think a lot of people expected us to maybe have a choice of whether we wanted to be a Warrior of Light or a Warrior of Darkness. There's nothing to say that can or can't happen, but based on the descriptions from the actual opening keynote, it says the Warrior of Light must become the Warrior of Darkness. So this doesn't seem to be so much of a choice as much as it is a plot point, and I'm curious how they actually go about enacting this in game, because when you have a fancy trailer like this, yeah, you switch them to the Dark Knight job and you talk about how, you know, becoming a Warrior of Darkness is really the route to go. In game, that's not really as easy to portray outside of, you know, maybe a story quest of some kind. So I'm curious to see how this will work from a storytelling aspect. There's almost somewhat certain terminologies they use that maybe imply that we could make certain decisions that would, you know, I guess determine how events would plan out. We've never really been an MMO that focuses much on player-made choices. We usually have very minuscule things that just open up small dialogue changes. That being said, though, I'm always open to the idea as long as it's well executed. And this story twist is looking to be something that that is going to bring a lot of new life into Final Fantasy XIV from a storytelling aspect. I need to see some people die. I need to see some people start dying more often, at the very least. I feel like we keep too many people alive for too long, and then maybe don't give them necessarily the send-offs that they deserve. So I'm hoping that we'll see a lot of that with this whole heading of, you know, light and darkness. Are we still, you know, how much do the city-states accept this? You know, how desperate does the situation actually become? And will we, sorry, my nose itches, and will we actually be able to forestall an 8th Umbral era, you know, a world-ending, a shard-ending Umbral era? Or, you know, will we be able to, with the power of darkness, stop that and actually save our realm from what would be deemed as one of the ultimate threats of all time? I've been saying it since they mentioned Twin Dooms. Zodiark and Hydaelyn, I think, are those Twin Dooms, and that we are just caught between them, and there's no good and there's no bad on either side. The Ascians have alluded to this, and I think we are really going to be exploring that going into 5.0. Just one more cool image of the Dark Knight Warrior of Darkness. He's Derplander, but he's the warrior. He's the Darklander. Now he's the Derp Darklander. There you go. And then for the rest of the opening keynote, it was a lot of standard stuff. For those of you who have seen previous opening keynotes for Final Fantasy XIV's first fan festival, which has always come from North America, it's usually very basic. You know, we don't expect too many surprises. You know, oh, there's going to be new dungeons, there's going to be new high-end raids, there's going to be new alliance raids. You know, I'm going to be making some changes. You know, we're going to be updating certain things about the battle system, and all that's kind of standard. Maybe show off a couple of areas. You know, we saw the Rocktia Greatwood, which I believe is this one right here. And we also saw, I think it's called Amarang. Yeah, Amarang, which sounds very dragonic in its origin. You know, when you think of you know, Akmorn and Mornify, like just the dragon language as very much it's very similar to that. So I'm hoping there are still 2 children of Midgard's armor that we haven't encountered or that we haven't personally spoken with. That was I remember Virtua. The other one is like something I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'll just stop. But maybe this is something to do with one of those. Maybe this is something to go with the history of the dragons of some kind or some sort of civilization that worked with the dragons. For the Roxy of Greatwood, you guys probably heard that. That was, I should maybe turn down the actual volume of that. I got like a software pop-up or something like that. I'll turn that down so you guys don't hear that anymore. So anyway, Roxy of Greatwood, no doubt going to be the homeland of something we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the actual video. And we just get to see some screenshots of them. I never doubt the visuals and the audio and stuff like that for Final Fantasy XIV. It's wonderful to take these things in. It's always great to appreciate them. But we can only take so much away from it from these screenshots, you know, than we would any other zone when it's being unveiled. You know, we're always thirsty for like the juicy new information. New areas, great. And again, there's the Rocktica Great was going to be an interesting one. This is Amarang. Again, another screenshot of Amarang. I think this one is too. This one, and by the way, the camera's not tilted. The city is. They made sure to clarify that altogether. So with that, we're going to be starting to go into some of the remaining screenshots. These are the screenshots again from the press site. I do have a bunch of them on Twitter, but unfortunately there was a big arm to hold the camera up, so most of my screenshots aren't really very good. Like, I can bring the points up to you though. Like, for example, The first Emperor, Salasas Galvus, for example, he's going to be one of the main antagonists, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. An Ascian with the face of Xenos. We have confirmed, of course, that that is Elidibus. We all kind of knew it, at this point because of 4.4, but he is going to be, of course, another threat. Again, learning more about the Ascians is all here. Warrior of Light must become the Warrior of Darkness. Multiple new jobs, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. Level caps being raised to 80. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. Some people thought it would go to 75 as like a little bit of a little bit of teasing for Final Fantasy XI. Battle system maintenance. This is, of course, something we expect every time they do a new level cap. They need to rebalance skills. They need to change the way, of course, that the rate at which they're earned, and any sort of job changes that need to come into effect based on new skills need to be introduced. And so, of course, they're going to be making changes to reorganizing our normal actions and role actions, so that way, they specifically said they know that we're looking at our hotbars right now going, whoa, can't do that, can't add new skills. But of course, they're going to be reorganizing it and making it so that your hotbars don't become more full than what they are now. They also mentioned a few other small battle changes. This one's not really small. TP and MP are going to be combined into a single resource in 5.0, so you won't have to think about one or the other. That being said, that does raise a few questions. Foe Requiem, for example, being an MP-related skill. Dark Knight, you used to have to balance its MP and its TP. You'd be using MP for Dark Arts, and then TP would just be what you use for your weapon skills. And same with Paladin. And so there's a lot of jobs that you really need to think about it. Do they start to more properly utilize job gauge? Like maybe now there's only one gauge for, Paladin and Dark Knight. Maybe they start using the blood gauge and the oath gauge for more things than just, the few things that they use it for. Maybe they're used to trigger dark arts, or maybe certain skills don't work the same way as they did before, and they don't use the MP or TP like they did before. There's a lot of questions. I'm sure that those will be very, very, popular questions throughout the next several months as we're waiting to get all the information. But they're questions that we're, of course, already asking right now. They're also going to be doing one thing where they add visual representations to health barriers. So, for example, something like an Eloquium, where the stronger the shield, the greater the visual representation is of that. So, if you see a player who has everyone shielded and one player just doesn't quite seem to have a shield, you should visually be able to see that as well. So it would help someone like a healer who maybe let's say you sucker and one person's not in range and you notice they missed a shield. You might be able to pull more information from that. Tell them, next time make sure you're close enough, or maybe you can spot them one if there's enough time. But it has all sorts of useful things, and more clarity is always a good thing. Sprawling new areas, I mentioned the Raktika Greatwood and, of course, Arang. I showed you a bunch of screenshots. They also, unfortunately, it's unfortunate some of these things aren't, available, or at least I didn't see them as screenshots when I was going through some of the assets. They confirmed they're going to be adding, of course, new beast tribes, new primals. They didn't reveal any new primals, but they did reveal the new Mo, which some of you may remember from the Evolution series as a new beast tribe. And the new Mo, along with pixies and dwarves and things like that, are going to be introduced as new tribes or beast tribes in Shadowbringers. Although the new Mo are the only ones they've specifically labeled as a beast tribe. So probably, some of those won't have primals necessarily, but the new Mo I totally expect to have primals there. Challenging new high-end raids, exciting new alliance raids, endgame content for Disciples of Land and Hand. They are going to be directly responsible for the restoration of Ishgard. So it's been a while now. We've ended the 1,000-year war between Ishgard and the dragons, and as such, crafters and gatherers across the servers are going to be able to work together and gather resources in order to rebuild the Holy See of Ishgard so that, maybe we could live there at some point. And Yoshida did say that, people keep saying all these things about Ishgard, like, Ishgard's still so run down. I hate that I can't go to Ishgard, or that I can't fix Ishgard. I can't live in Ishgard. And so he seems to understand that maybe if we do this, maybe in the next housing area will be an Ishgardian one. So something you'll want your crafters and gatherers to get done at some point. Probably won't actually be required, but, you still want it to get done. It'll get done. And they said, don't worry, fishers, there will be something for you too. They also mentioned user-controlled farms. They said the new job's not farmer, but that there will be user-controlled farms where you can actually take care of a farm, like a proper farm. We need more information about that, because Final Farmville 14 is not what we're trying to be right now. New recipes, new items, that's all standard stuff. And then they started introducing stuff that will be new. to Shadowbringers, stuff that we don't currently have, entire systems that are not in place currently. The first one is the trust system. Now, if you've played Final Fantasy XI, and they made mention of this, trust is a system that was used in Final Fantasy XI to aid players so that they didn't always have to be looking for other actual people in order to actually get things done. In Final Fantasy XI, for example, you can collect a tank trust, healer trust, DPS trust, make a full party of you plus these trusts, and go out and just level, kill enemies out in the world, maybe complete some story quests, stuff like that. And it's a system that's brought a lot of new life into Final Fantasy XI. It's made catching up not as much of a problem as one might envision when it comes to that game. Final Fantasy XIV isn't designed in the same way. It's not designed to be just used anywhere. Specifically, it was mentioned that they will come to your aid to assist you throughout stuff like Shadowbringer areas or dungeons that you may be going through. Now, I hope they don't limit it to Shadowbringer dungeons, but basically the idea is that as you're playing through dungeons and maybe you're not finding enough people for a queue, you kind of just bite the bullet and say, well, let me do this with some trust then. And maybe you get Thancred or Alisaie or Ishtola or one of those to join you, and a group of them to join you. And then you can go through the content, and that way you don't have to be hamstringed. And if you're limited on time and the queues are one of the reasons you're having trouble progressing at a pace that's good for you, you can use this new trust system to get through. I have to imagine this is built based on feedback from the squadrons, because squadrons did do something similar for the older dungeons. And that might be why maybe trusts are for only newer dungeons and squadrons are still for the older dungeons, but we can't go to every dungeon with our squadrons, so it doesn't work entirely. So we'll see where it actually goes, but we'll start with a handful of trusts. They'll add new trusts based on the ones that players want, and it should be a system that's great for players that don't have a lot of time or maybe have some social anxieties but still really want to enjoy Final Fantasy XIV. Another new system is New Game Plus. I know, just stay with me here. New Game Plus is a system that will allow you to reset your progress on certain story quests and play them in a completely uninhibited manner, meaning you could be level 70 unsynced on all of them and revisit entire storylines that you may have missed before. Now, they didn't give us enough details on this. They specifically said that you would be starting from the beginning. So if you wanted to do just, let's just say, I want to do just the, what's the one where you go up against Relban in 3.2 or something, the Rumble or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, something like that. Maybe you want to do the story events of patch 3.2. I don't think they made it seem like you can't just go back and do only 3.2. You'd have to reset the story quests that come before it as well. How far back? I don't know. That being said, this seems to be based on the feedback that players want the ability to replay certain instances and stuff. My question is, can a player reset their story progress and use it to level an alternate class, for example? Now, that's I don't know. There's not enough information about that, about exactly how many quests it's going to allow you to do. What about all the overworld quests that make you do super menial things like patch 2.3? Will you have to go through those? Will it reset all of those? Will it just reset the major events so that you can revisit those? I don't know. It's not made abundantly clear here. There's a little bit of ambiguous wording based on the actual presentation. But it is a system that has potential merits. I know a lot of people who have asked me, wait, I need quests to level my alts, and they're maybe not a fan of doing Palace of the Dead. And they'd rather at least, even if they don't want to really redo the story, they want at least some sort of structure of getting them from level 1 to 50 to 60 to 70 and soon to 80. So if it could be used for that, that would be my personal number one best use for it, but we need more information on it. It's one of those things that sounds really silly at first, and hopefully it actually works out when the time comes for it. The next one's a huge one. World visiting. Now, world visiting is the idea of going to one of the 3 main city aetherites, Limsa Lominsa, Gridania, or Ul'dah, and using those aetherites to teleport to another server on your data center. So, for example, I am on the Aether data center, and I am on Gilgamesh. Sarkatanis is also on the Aether data center. What I would do, at least with the way they described it, is I would go to Limsa Lominsa, I would teleport, I would pick the option to do a world visit, and I would teleport to Sarkatanis, and then I could do everything I would normally do on my own server, but on Sarkatanis temporarily. And that includes things like, new expansion comes out, maybe you're having some congestion issues on your server, you're on Balmong or Gilgamesh, and maybe you want to start going to work on that main scenario quest on someplace like Zalera, perhaps. You could go do that. Somebody who doesn't play on your server wants to do treasure maps. Hey, let's all pick a server on our data center and do our treasure maps on that server itself. This is going to open up a lot more opportunities to be social with people who aren't on your server. Yes, there's plenty of content you can do cross-server. Most content, as a matter of fact, can be done cross-server. But for the few events that can't, then you'll have an opportunity. The question will be about things like trading, because then there comes into the question of economics regarding the individual server. So I'd have to imagine there are some limitations, especially when it comes to stuff like trading loot. So we need to hear more on the nitty gritty, but this is something that's really good. This is a little bit of catching up in terms of technology and the way some other games allow you to do things that are similar. That being said, there was another announcement later that almost undoes it a little bit. So we go forward, and on top of that, world visiting will be released before 5.0 so that they can work out the kinks. So expect it between 4.5 and 5.0 probably. Then they just a few more, small announcements, nothing too major, and they're ending support to 32-bit Windows. They feel kind of bad. You won't be able to not play on 32-bit Windows, but, it's just not going to run as smoothly. It's kind of unfortunate, Then they announced that they're adding a new data center to North America, a new data center to Europe, and they're going to be regrouping the worlds that we currently have to work that. Now, I don't know if we're getting new servers. What I'd imagine is we're just getting a new data center for each, and the servers that are on the current data centers are going to be split up. Now, with Europe, I could totally see them adding like 5 new servers. I think Europe actually needs 5 new servers. North America doesn't really need new servers as much. I think we definitely could use maybe 1 or 2, but I don't know, we have preferred worlds that just rotate in and out, and it's just this is like this never-ending set of preferred worlds that's always there. So this world regrouping, this kind of a little bit undoes the world visiting thing earlier. Well, I was hoping for the opposite announcement, for all of them to be consolidated into one super data center. So, get both Primal and Ether in one, and then just add new servers to Europe, which I think would have, been adequate depending on, of course, the technology of the servers themselves. But they went the other way. This means splitting up people more, so the world visiting feature is, I guess, a little bit less useful than initially. It's still a great feature. It's just I don't want more servers on top of world visiting. I just want the way we have it now, maybe to do it. I don't know. It's a great idea that's kind of overwritten by this addition, which is a great technical new addition to have more servers and stuff. Just it comes with a drawback immediately alongside the world visiting feature. We'll see how it actually turns out. Then Yoshida was about to walk off stage, and Koji was like, "Hey, we got one more thing. Hello." And Yoshida's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, one more thing. A new playable race." Now, this has been, people have been talking a little bit, about the possibility of a new playable race. There's one race in particular that people have been suggesting that we should get, and it's been probably the most requested race of all time in regards to Final Fantasy XIV. Ever since the 2.x days, even before the 2.x days, there was a race that was, stood above the rest in terms of, one that players really wanted to be able to play. Honestly, for some reason it makes me think of that the Rocktica Greatwood. All those villages in the trees. I feel like there's a race of people that could live in like a Greatwood area. I think I could think of one in particular. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention Yoshida was wearing this shirt. The shirt didn't have any jobs on it or anything, but I don't know. I guess he's a big Looney Tunes fan because I had Bugs Bunny all over the shirt. So I don't know what that could possibly, most of the time we look at it for the job, and obviously, we're not getting Beastmaster, we're not getting Mascot. So I wonder, especially when they zoomed in on it right after he announced the new playable races. I don't know. That's it's Viera. All right. They said this is probably the last new playable race, by the way, Viera, because, having 7 races is, quite a few. So who knows? Maybe they do another one later, but they said this is probably the last new playable race. Of course, the number one big question with Viera, male Viera, of course, there's certain other rumors going around regarding playable races, but one of the big things with Viera is that they're pretty much female, but I think they could design a male Viera. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out, but curious to see how much they'll resemble the Final Fantasy XII and the Tactics games, because there's some model issues with those where it's questionable regarding if it's really going to visually be okay. specifically regarding their boots, but it either turns out good or it doesn't, you know. let's have to wait and see. Viera though, Viera is definitely coming. I might as well actually go through some of these images that we have on the screen here, since I've been going through all this other stuff and there's no images of some of these things here on the actual stuff. This is an interesting one because this is supposed to be a representation of the Warrior of Darkness, but this is I don't know if that's just an armor set that they're showing off, and that's just the player as a Dark Knight, or if that's a character that's going to be you know how we are the Warrior of Light, and that we always have Derplander kind of portraying us in the trailer. I wonder if this is Ardbert, for example, who's actually playing as a Warrior of Darkness in the story itself, outside of our interpretation of him. We have this thing again, who apparently, if it's here, it's probably going to be more important than just some creature that's just chilling, you know? Oh, they do actually have pictures of the Numo. Here we go. Oh, no, we haven't gotten to that one yet. You wait. you wait. You do not do that yet. We will get to that image that I just flipped to in just a second here. Let me just get my place back over here on Le Twitter. Okay, so new playable race, the shirt. Then they showed off the Amano artwork, and we thought we were done. They said there'd be new jobs. I'll talk about them later. But the CEO and president of Square Enix, Yosuke Matsuda, he always comes out and he's always got to press Yoshida for something. And he came out dressed pretty interestingly. Let me see if I can pull up a window capture of this real quick, just because I think you're gonna want to see it. And so we're doing this a little bit differently than maybe otherwise intended. Well, there it is behind the picture. So as you can see right here, that was what he came out looking like. And so it's a pretty obvious teaser, if one may say so itself. So we're like, oh, okay, so because Yoshida's shirt didn't tease us, he'll come out dressed like this, and then they won't say anything. They'll just tell us, please wait for the next FanFest, whatever. Yeah, they didn't do that. They went full ham, and they teased it. They just straight up did it. Blue Mage. Blue Mage will be coming to Final Fantasy XIV, and it looks swag-tastic. It's got pimp cane and everything. These were just pictures that I was trying to take with my phone along the way. And then you can see a couple more here. Action learned, for example, after defeating Shiva, and then you see him using the skill where she pulls her bow out and does the giant 270-degree AoE. Now, what's interesting about this, there's quite a few things that we need to talk about in regards to Blue Mage. Now, we have another screenshot right here of him learning an image from a Malboro. The first thing is that this is not going to be an expansion job. This job is going to be available in patch 4.5. If we actually go back to just the slideshow on the screen, we can finally go off to this image, which is the Blue Mage art. You can see the Cactuar, the bomb. I think that's... can't tell what, I think that's, it's an Ahriman at the top left. Okay. And they are going to be using and learning skills like a Blue Mage should be expected to do, something that we didn't think they were going to be able to do and actually make it work. And it's still questionable if they've made it work. So with Blue Mage, you can see here, this one's a little cut off, so let's zoom it down a little bit. There you go. There you go. We'll pull that one back up. I'll just move these around real quick. Action learned. And then you have the Blue Mage one, and then we're back to Shadowbringers. So with Blue Mage, it's going to be available in patch 4.5. So that's a somewhat interesting prospect right off the bat. Everyone's like, cool, we'll get to play the job before the new expansion comes out. However, it's not going to be necessarily fully released in patch 4.5. So they're calling this the first limited job. There's never been something that's been labeled a limited job before. Now, they said they're going to explain all of this in the next letter from the producer live, which is tomorrow. But a limited job could mean a few things. For one, later in the same slide, they say that when Blue Mage initially releases, it's only going to be level 50. And as new patches come out, it will gradually have its max level raised. Now, when I first saw that, one thing came to mind. I was afraid that maybe they wouldn't increase the level cap on it enough before Shadowbringers came out, and then we'd have this awkward situation where Blue Mage is max level 60, and Shadowbringers is taking us up to 80, and all of a sudden it's Blue Mage isn't really a job; it's more like a collection thing just for players to do on the side, which would be pretty lame. Let's admit it. However, after thinking about it a little bit more, And by the way, we're totally sidetracking away from the limited job thing. This level 50 and gradually leveling thing that they're talking about doing, I think it's just a gimmick to get us to keep subscribing between 4.5 and 5.0, and that this job will be level 70 just before the release of Shadowbringers, and then we'll be able to take it to level 80, and it will effectively be launched technically in 5.0, because that's when it'll get close to the point of being completed. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping that's what they describe it like in the letter from the producer live tomorrow, so I'll have more information then. The other thing for limited job is the possibility that it doesn't have access to all the skills. Blue Mage is very notorious across the series for learning a bunch of skills, and in some games, like Final Fantasy XI, for example, they can only use certain skills. They can only use a limited number of skills out of their arsenal. They don't have access to every possible skill all the time. And that could be the other reason why it's called a limited job, because it can't just use all the skills. It is a completely different form of skill progression, and that's the other theory. So we'll have to see which one it is. It's not connected to any of the classes, and you do properly learn monster actions. They showed learning actions, learning Thousand Needles from a Cactuar, or learning Bad Breath from a Malboro, or learning that attack from Shiva. And they said there's going to be a surprising number of skills that we're actually going to be able to learn. It's not just going to be, oh, here's a skill every 2 levels and blah, blah, blah. They said that you're going to be really surprised at how many skills you can actually learn on Blue Mage. Now, the other thing, though, is a Blue Mage only duty is going to be introduced called I think it's called the Blue Carnival. And the question is, are all these skills learned in the Blue Carnival, or is the Blue Carnival something for Blue Mages to do? So I think they're going to learn their skills in the Blue Carnival. I don't think they're going to be going into like a Shiva Extreme, for example, and eating that attack to the face in order to learn it. We don't know. This is just theory at this point, so we'll have to wait and see what they actually decide to do. I'd like to point out, most important detail for me is no job or no role was given any sort of association with the job in this teaser, which means we could very well be looking at our first any role job. I think if they nail this whole role action thing, something I've had no faith in them doing. You guys have heard me say it over and over again. No, we'll never get Blue Mage away. Good. Make me look like an idiot. Prove me wrong. That's what I want. Because that means that we're getting something that isn't conventional, because I've resigned myself to always making my predictions, just based on this like strict set of rules that they always have. All of this is against that, and that's great. That's the things that I feel like we want. We want it to work, but we want it to go completely against the conventions that have been set forth for us over the last 5 years. And if Blue Mage can successfully do that, it could be if it can make it so it's got these limited aspects where you have to select which skills, you have to go out and learn the skills, and maybe it doesn't have a set role, and all of a sudden you have this job that's completely versatile. Great. These are all great things, and I think they're perfect for what this job wants to be. So I hope it turns out that way. I might be overhyping myself, but fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping to see. And that's going to be coming at 4.5. So I'm hoping, again, that once 4.5 is out, they'll release a few levels for it every, patch or so. It'll be level 70 by the end of 4.5, and then we'll go up to level 80 along with all the rest of the jobs in 5.0. So fingers crossed that it's not just a collection thing, and Blue Mage is like no actual function in the game. That would be horribly upsetting to me. But with that, that actually does bring an end to the opening keynote. They just said thanks, everyone for coming by. And then at that point, the rest of the panels took place. The lore panel is already finished. The developers panel has already finished. And so we'll probably be doing some videos about those and about some of the things that were said in both of those. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Again, apologies for the audio. You probably heard the go-karts at some point. And yeah, I'll get this posted, and then I've got more work to do. So anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. We'll be doing tons of videos about all the information that's been coming out of FanFest, and of course, we'll be keeping you up to date with all the new stuff that comes out of FanFest as time goes on. So anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, take care.